President Biden speaking with Chinese President Xi Jinping yesterday over the phone. This is the first connection since the two met in November. The two leaders discussing military-to-military communications, artificial intelligence risks, and fighting climate change. The White House also says Biden pushed Xi on TikTok. Watch this.
The president reiterated our concerns about the ownership of TikTok. He made it clear to President Xi that this was not about a ban of the application, but rather our interest in divestiture, so that the national security interests and the data security of the American people can be protected.
An advocacy group backed by former Vice President Mike Pence purchasing a $2 million ad buy, pushing Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer to bring the House TikTok crackdown bill up for a vote. Joining me now to talk more about all of that is Tennessee Senator Bill Hagerty, a member of the Senate Foreign Relations, Banking, and Appropriations Committee. Senator, it's good to see you.
Good morning,
Thank
Maria.
you so much for being here. Do you think the TikTok bill comes to the floor in the Senate?
It's hard to say. It's up to Chuck Schumer whether it does or not.
Why would he not bring it?
Again, there's a tremendous amount of pressure on Schumer to deal with this, but there are many other things that there have been pressure on Chuck Schumer to deal with, and he consistently puts it off. If you look at where we wound up with the appropriations bills, right up to the final line, almost to a government shutdown, it's just difficult for me to imagine how he prioritizes anything.
Why? What are his motivations? Why won't he do what the people want?
It seems that politics are the only motivation in this regard, and power. The appropriation process has been bypassed for years. Chuck Schumer seems to want to control everything, and he maintains ball control because he maintains control over what goes on the floor. We'll see how this bill prioritizes itself when the grand scheme of things is laid out, but I think it's going to be basically politics at the end of the day.
Wow, that is really disappointing. Let me get your take on this call between Xi Jinping and Joe Biden. Sure. What do you know went on? It feels like the U.S. is constantly begging China for some kind of a rapport and a constructive relationship, but China doesn't respond. Janet Yellen planning to go back again. Anthony Blinken's going to go back again. What's happening?
It's interesting how this White House is handling China. China is a predator on so many fronts, Maria. They're economic predators. They're certainly military predators, and from a diplomatic standpoint, they've adopted very predatory practices as well. When I hear the White House talking, and I understand some of the conversation between President Xi and President Biden was constructive. What they talked about with regard to TikTok, I think President Biden made clear what he's looking for is not a ban, but he's looking for a divestiture. I think that's the path that, again, Chuck Schumer is going to have to figure out if he brings this bill to the floor. They also talked about the production that China is undertaking of green energy products and flooding the market with that. This is very typical of China's practices of coming in, picking a champion industry, subsidizing it, and flooding the market with it. What I would have loved to have heard more about was how President Biden is holding China accountable. I wish he would hold them accountable for purchasing energy from Russia, from Iran, which is essentially fueling the wars there.
Why does he never hold Xi Jinping accountable? It's unbelievable. This happens over and over again. And your point about flooding the market with subsidized products, I've said this many times. John Ratcliffe, former DNI, told me China's strategy is very simple. Rob, replicate, replace. That is exactly what they're doing now in the EV area, isn't it?
Indeed. Rob, you talk about intellectual property theft, and replicate, they copy what we have, they try to make it better, and replace with deeply subsidized products.
So they did that at Tesla? Right. Tell me what's going on.
That's what we just learned, that there's a new product that's been introduced from China. A Chinese EV car maker has put out a product looking much like a Porsche for a price point of about $30,000. Tesla's price dropped.
A Porsche or a Tesla?
It looks like a Porsche to compete against Tesla, and Tesla's price dropped 8.5% yesterday on the markets.
So that's why Tesla stock plummeted. Wow, this is incredible. That's exactly the strategy. Rob, replicate, replace. Come up with something that was an American-made company that has the intellectual property that they could steal, replicate it, and then ultimately replace it.
There's a deeper concern about the Chinese EVs as well, Maria, and that is that these EVs have a tremendous amount of information gathering equipment. And I think there's a concern here in America that that information could be gathered and in turn sent back to China. I think that's one of our gravest concerns is the national security law of China, which says that information gathered anywhere in the world as long as it's in the possession of a Chinese company, is subject to CCP surveillance.
I didn't see any readouts in terms of surveillance coming up in this conversation with Joe Biden and Xi Jinping. Fox News' Peter Doocy asked the White House National Security Communications Advisor John Kirby whether President Biden is concerned about the open southern border, the Chinese nationals coming in, and whether or not this wide open border and the fact that we don't know who's coming in could ultimately lead to a terrorist attack inside of America. Watch this.
If we don't know who is coming into our country and we don't know what their intent is, that is a threat. Does President Biden agree?
We do have significant national security concerns that have to be met. It's not anything more from the president.
As the person in charge of preventing a terrorist attack in the homeland, does President Biden think that some of these border crossers could be in the United States right now plotting a terrorist attack
The
against
president's
Americans?
confident that throughout the interagency, DHS, intelligence community, that we're doing everything we can to be as vigilant as we can to ensure the safety and security of the American people here at home.
Do you agree? Are we doing everything we can to be vigilant?
Maria, that's just shocking. Can I share a story with you? I was just down at the border about 4 weeks ago. I was meeting with a rancher there, and he told me that he'd encountered 15 Syrian males. He said they're all military age Syrians. They hadn't presented themselves at the point of entry for asylum. They'd come across his ranch in a place where they could not be detected. They're not a known Godaway. They are just a Godaway. What are they doing here?
Wow.
We don't know. You think about the number of people that have actually been apprehended that are on the terrorist watch list. A number of them have been released into the country. If you arrive here from Venezuela, because they don't have an information sharing agreement with us, the presumption is it's okay to turn you loose in America. Meanwhile, Venezuelan crime rates are going down. I understand the jails are being emptied in Venezuela. This is deeply, deeply concerning.
And why is Joe Biden not recognizing this, or why is he putting America in such a vulnerable position?
I think it all gets back to something that I was able to get every Democrat on the record. I put forward legislation 3 weeks ago.
I know you did.
Suggesting that we not be allowed to count illegal migrants in the census, because right now these illegal migrants are used to apportion congressional seats and therefore electoral votes. If you look at the number of people that have flooded into our country just under Joe Biden, that would account for 13 congressional seats, Maria. 13 congressional seats, and therefore that many electoral votes.
So the open border gives them more people to put in areas that have representation that is Democrat. That will get them more seats in terms of congressional districts.
Exactly.
But will those people ultimately vote? Do they want them to vote in the presidential election?
The Democrats win regardless because they still retain congressional power. If you look at the states that are losing population, New York, Illinois, California, where are the sanctuary cities located? Again, New York, Chicago, Illinois, Los Angeles, San Francisco. They just need the people there. In fact, the congressional representative from Brooklyn, the same district of James Madison High School, where they turned the kids out so they could put illegal migrants in for housing, she said it on the air. She said, I need these illegal migrants for the purposes of redistricting. She doesn't want to lose her district, and she's going to repopulate her district with these people that have come here illegally.